Today we're going to talk about starting series in the new year. Hi, my name is Jeanette and I want to thank you for joining me on the channel Jane Reads. So today I'm going to talk about the first book in series, books that I recommend and books that I'm hoping to read in the new year. So I have recently announced my Christian Fiction Reading Challenge. Here's the printable. I will link that video in the description below if you haven't seen it and you would like to partake. There is a printable for it as well. And so January's prompt is to start a series. So today I'm going to talk about the book ones that I have really enjoyed, and then I'm going to talk about book ones that are on my list that are possibles that I could read in January. Okay, so I need my list because I don't have physical copies for all of them. And during this, you're going to get a sneak peek of some books that I have recently hauled because the haul video hasn't gone up, but I need to talk about some of them. Okay, so the first book, Beneath the Surface by Lynn H. Blackburn. This is book one of the Dive Team Investigation series. It is a romantic suspense. We are following members of a dive team and some other friends, associates that they come in contact with during their investigation. I loved this series. I have read this whole series through twice, and each time all three books of the series were 5 stars. I just love these characters and the pace of the story. So this is my first recommendation. Book 1, Dive Team Investigations, Beneath the Surface by Lynn H. Blackburn. Okay, so sticking on the romantic suspense line, we've got Life Flight by Lynette Eason. This is the beginning of the Extreme Measures series, and we are following 4 women who are friends and have kind of, I don't know if I would say unusual jobs, but high-risk jobs. So Penny, oh, I had the right character name off the bat. So Penny is an EMS helicopter pilot, and we are following her. She flies a helicopter, obviously. She's a helicopter pilot. We are following her story. We're learning about her background, and it opens with a possible helicopter crash at the top of a mountain where she quickly learns that the FBI, I think it's the FBI, yes, the FBI is on the hunt for a serial killer that has escaped. So it is like intense right from the beginning. Again, love this book, gave it 5 stars. So the next book is Point of Danger by Irene Hannon. This is the beginning of the Triple Threat series, and the series follows 3 sisters. Each book, the main character is a different sister. In this one, we are following Eve Riley. Yes, gotta check those character names. We are following Eve Riley, who is a radio show host, and she begins to receive threats for some of her opinions about things. And so she connects with police detective Brent, see, check the character names, connects with Brent and trying to figure out who is threatening her. Then as we're following it through, we do get points of view from the villain, so there's suspicions of who that villain is. But then when it was revealed at the end, like the twist at the end, it was like, I did not see it coming at all. I was totally shocked. So, another great book. Okay, now moving into historical romance, or just historical fiction, I guess. No Ocean Too Wide by Carrie Turansky. Turansky? Every time I trip over her name. This is book 1 of a duology. We are following the oldest sister is trying to find her younger siblings because her younger siblings have been shipped off, were perceived to be orphans, and were shipped off to Canada. And the oldest sister, Laura, is in England. And so she comes to Canada to try to track down her siblings and what happened to them. And kind of why were they perceived as orphans when their mom was still living. I absolutely adored this book. And I learned bits of history that I had no idea about. I remember talking to my mom about these British, between the years of 1869 and 1939, more than 100,000 impoverished British children were sent across the ocean to Canada with the promise of a better life. Those who took them in to work as farm laborers or household servants were told the children were orphans. But was that the truth? And I remember talking to my mom about this, and she's like, well, that really happened. Like, that was, and I, again, no idea. So yeah, I absolutely loved this story. It is a duology, and the story does not end in this book. You really need to read the book number 2 to get the final, to know what happens to this family. So yeah, I highly recommend this book. I have read it twice, and I loved it both times. Okay, then A Distant Melody by Sarah Sundin. This is the book that introduced me to Sarah Sundin's writing. And since then, I have read, well, I read this series, which is a 3-book series, and then I've read another 3 books by her, and I've added more to my list. I just love her writing. So in this one, we are following Allie, who is an American at home, and her parents are trying to get her to marry. And then we meet Walt, who is a fighter pilot. And so he is stationed overseas, and they correspond back and forth between letters, but Walt isn't who Allie's parents want her to marry. And so we're following that story, and I loved this. Just the letters, and just watching the relationship grow and how they kind of overcame what was before them. Love this story. And as soon as I finished this one, I had to get book 2 and book 3. And I devoured this series. I loved this book. Okay, now let's go with some contemporary romances. So, first one I have written down, which are both on my Kindle, is 5 Days in Skye by Carla Laureano. So in this one, we are following Andrea, who gets assigned to go over to the Isle of Skye, Scotland. Yes. I'm always like, in my head is Ireland, but no, it's Scotland. So she is a consultant for a hotel business. She goes over and meets Jamie, who is running or starting up a family hotel. He is a famous cook in London, but they grew up in Scotland and the Isle of Skye. And so we're following them, and she only has 5 days to kind of get this hotel, her recommendations in, and see how it's running and stuff. And just the way things progress, I love this story. I just really love the story, the setting. I felt like I was right there. I really loved it. And then the other 2 books follow the other 2 siblings of Jamie. So they're all set in the Scotland, England area. So the last book is Someplace Familiar by Teresa Tysinger. This is book 1 of a 4-book series called Laurel Cove. And so it is set in a fictional small town called Laurel Cove. We are following the female character who arrives in town after buying her grandmother's house after her grandmother passes away, and she plans on fixing up the house. She has come to town kind of to escape some bad memories that happened in the big city of New York. So she comes to the small town, she's carrying hurts, and kind of wants to kind of restart life. She is currently staying at the local B&B where she meets Jack, who is the grandson of the B&B owner and has lived in Laurel Cove all his life. Their initial meetup was so cute, like so entertaining. I loved it. And then as we get to know these 2 characters, we're finding out like what hurts she is dealing with and kind of what's happened to him in his past and what he's dealing with. They're both dealing with some very heavy stuff and past trauma that has really affected their lives now, and how they approach people and deal with they have trust issues, obviously, because of the past stuff that has happened to them. And the way they connected, the characters around them, and so she doesn't know anybody in town other than the people from the B&B. And kind of Jack introduces her around and into his friend group. And the way the friend group welcomes her and makes her start feeling like a community member and part of the group was just so heartwarming. But then Jack's ex is really trying to break up any possibility of a relationship happening with this new girl. But his ex is horrible. But they talked, like the new girl and Jack. I wish I could remember her name. The two of them talked about everything that happened, and so they communicated. Loved that. I loved the way this story progressed. So that is my last recommendation. Okay, now the books that I plan on reading in the new year that are possibilities for this prompt for me. Okay, so this is where you're going to get a sneak peek, I think, of some books that I've recently bought. Okay, the first book is Unknown Threat by Lynn H. Blackburn. It's a romantic suspense. It's by Lynn Blackburn. Beneath the Surface is one of my favorite. The whole series is one of my favorite. So I'm really hoping to really enjoy this book. I have had this series on my shelf for almost a year now. It is time to read it. So this is very high on my to-read list. Then we have Endgame by Rachel Dillon. This is another romantic suspense. I have read one series by Rachel Dillon before and I enjoyed it. So when I saw this one at a thrift store, I thought, well, let's get it and try it. I don't really know much about it other than I think it's set in Washington, D.C. Yes, so. Okay, then I've got Last Light by Terri Blackstock. This is the only series by Terri Blackstock I've never read. I know. So I recently picked this up at a library swap. No, it was at the sale, not the swap. You know, one cost me money, one didn't. So I recently picked this one up and I got all 3 books out of 4 books. So I'm only missing book number 4. So I can start this series anytime now. I don't really know a lot about it, but I remember when I don't know if when it originally came out, or I remember seeing it. I mean, it's been out for quite a few years. Let's see, what's the date on this book? 2005. Yeah. So I remember back in the day when I was reading all the Terri Blackstock books and stuff, and I saw this one, it just didn't really interest me. But now it's the only series I've never read by her. So I'm going to give it a try. Okay, then we've got historical fiction. I recently picked up To Steal a Heart by Jen Turano. I've heard good things about this author. I've only ever read one book by her, and that was quite a few years ago. So I thought, well, let's give it another try, and I found this at a thrift store for $1. I couldn't pass it up. So then With You Always by Jody Hedlund. This is book 1 of the Orphan Train series, and this one was recommended to me by one of you, by a subscriber, because I enjoyed the No Ocean Too Wide so much. They said you would probably really enjoy this book as well, which sounds very similar storyline. Is one of the many immigrants struggling to survive in the 1850s New York, Elise knows she must take action to care for her younger sisters. She finds a glimmer of hope when the New York Children's Aid Society starts sending skilled workers to towns out west. But the promise of the society's orphan trains is not all it seems. So, I don't know, I'm really interested about this, and I recently picked it up. This is one of the new ones, so. Okay, then I've got Carved in Stone by Elizabeth Camden. This is the beginning of the Blackstone Legacy series. Found this one at the thrift store recently, so another book one that I have on my list. And the last one is The Captain's Daughter by Jennifer Delamere. This is the beginning of the London Beginnings series, and it's a historical set in London, England. I was intrigued right away just from seeing Big Ben there. Yeah. Give me a London landscape, and I most likely will pick up the book. Okay, So these are all the possibilities, the 7 possibilities that I could read for the prompt, for the January prompt of Start a Series. Have you read any of these 7? And is there one that I should kind of start first? I want to say right now, I'm really leaning for this one. But I also really want to read that historical. Well, both the historicals. So I think right at this moment in time, my top 3 are Unknown Threat by Lynn Blackburn, With You Always by Jody Hedlund, and The Captain's Daughter by Jennifer Delamere. I think those are the top 3 right now, but that could easily change by the time I go to pick my January TBR. We'll see. So I want to thank you for taking the time to watch this video today, and I would love it if you would like and subscribe to my channel, and let me know in the comments below kind of if you plan on participating in the Christian Fiction Reading Challenge that I'm doing, and kind of what your book 1 is going to be. Thank you. Bye.